Hey everyone, it's Nadine Beveridge here from learnholidayhosting.com. In light of what's been happening, Airbnb has been conducting what they call listening sessions all around the world. And today I'm going to answer a few of the questions that were asked of them. In the last few days, I polled a bunch of Facebook groups to find out what were the questions that you guys want answered the most. And I'm going to tell you what the answers were in just a tick. The listening session I attended was in Queensland, Australia, and the person answering the questions was Susan Wheeldon. Now, Susan is the country manager for Australia and New Zealand, and while I'm sure that the answers are applicable to everybody throughout the world, as is the Airbnb policy, I want you to double check in your area that these answers apply to you too. Out of all the questions that were asked, there was one standout question, and I'm going to answer that right at the end, of course, because I want you to stay tuned to find out all of the information that we were given from this listening session. Now, another thing to note before we start is that a few of the questions were similar. You may recognise questions that you answered in the Facebook groups, but you may not recognise some of the other questions because they were kind of put together and answered all at once. Okay, the first question. Will eligible 25% refunds be backdated? The short answer is yes. The long answer is this policy now covers all extenuating reservations for stays and experiences made on or before March 14th, with a check-in date between March 14th and May 31st. Travellers, now that's a special word, travellers who decide to cancel on eligible reservations will receive a full refund or a travel credit, including all service fees. Now it's important to note here that that says if travellers cancel, not if the host cancels, okay? Question number 2. If my guests request a refund and I accept that refund, am I still eligible? Airbnb says yes. For all eligible stays, we will give you the 25% refund. Question 3, when will I be notified? Airbnb says an email will be coming soon to all eligible hosts and payments will be done on a monthly basis as there is a significant volume, so it needs to be done in batches. It will be paid out automatically to any qualifying hosts. Next question. Why did you give us so little, only 25% of our original refund policy, while you kept all of the money as a credit? Airbnb says, Airbnb is refunding all fees related to pandemic bookings. The guest maintains the credit so they are able to rebook on Airbnb in the future once travel becomes possible again. We wanted to make sure the money was going back into the host community as opposed to seeing that money being taken away entirely as a refund. While we know that on an individual level there is still an impact that you are not receiving this revenue, we did look at how we could best serve the entire host community locally. We did look at making a credit for each specific booking, however we know that for many reasons people may not be able to travel to the same location down the path. Question number 5, Airbnb encourages the flexible cancellation policy, but now hosts are missing out. This program was designed to support any eligible host who would have received a payout under normal circumstances, but who are not getting a payment because of the extenuating circumstances policy. We know that not every host will be covered by this initiative, but we have done our very best to support the entire host community by finding a balance to support all of our hosts. Eligibility is based on receiving a virus cancellation, and the recent changes to a host cancellation policy since the start of the pandemic, for example, after the 14th of March, if you moved from strict to flexible, that only applies to future bookings and not those eligible for this policy. So if these changes, if you made them recently, would not impact your eligibility for the 25% payout. In other words, if you changed from a strict cancellation policy to a flexible one after the 14th of March and you received any new bookings, it doesn't matter anyway. The new bookings are not eligible for the 25% payout. Any new bookings that were taken after the 14th of March are under your normal extenuating circumstances policy unless you or the guest ends up with the virus. Another really popular question by hosts was, can Airbnb add checkboxes that guests must answer prior to booking so hosts are not fined by local regulations for non-essential travel? Airbnb says, We'll definitely take this back to the leadership team. I would also say we've been really proactive on letting, as you would have seen, both hosts and guests know about government restrictions and that there should only be essential travel. I would also like to think that our guests would take some responsibility and make sure that they are doing the right thing at this time as well. The next question has been creating a lot of frustration for everybody and still is. Customer support response time is still too long. What are you doing about this? Airbnb says, like every business around the world, we obviously have received a significant influx of calls and contacts at this time. Our community support team has been working hard and our support team has been working around the clock to provide assistance to our hosts and guests. We are understandably seeing an unprecedented increase in calls and email volume. We're doing all we can to provide timely and active and proactive support in this challenging period. To give you some perspective of that, our call team is answering just under 50,000 calls a day. We know how frustrating that can be to be put on hold. And what we would ask is to address your concerns. We are regularly updating our Help Centre and our Pandemic Resource Centre with all the latest information. If you could go to that first and just see if you can find the answer that you're looking for there, it would really help us out. If you can't find the information, we just ask you to be patient with us during this time, and we are doing all we can to get back to you as quickly as we can. The recent Superhost assessment caused a lot of concern for a lot of hosts. So what is Airbnb doing about people who've lost their Superhost status due to the cancellations? Airbnb says, here's what all current Superhosts need to know about the April 2020 Superhost assessment. Your Superhost status will not be impacted by cancellations under our extenuating circumstances policy or by having a decrease in the number of bookings you have completed. So for current Superhosts, the April 2020 assessment will waive 2 of the Superhost criteria that could potentially be affected by disruption caused by the virus. It would just be maintaining a cancellation rate of 1% or less, or hosting at least 10 stays in the past year, or 100 nights over at least 3 stays per host with longer term. Susan Weldon went on to say, there are some important things to note. Your overall rating will still impact your Superhost status. To maintain your Superhost status, you must still have that average rating of 4.8 or higher based on reviews from your guests in the past year. Communication is still really important, and I think even more so during this time. Keeping Superhost status does depend on you responding to 90% of those new booking related measures within 24 hours. Though you may not be able to accept every inquiry, it's still important to respond quickly and continue to communicate with those potential guests. We are going to keep monitoring the impact of the virus. This adjusted Superhost policy applies to our April 2020 assessment only, but we will be closely monitoring the situation. So please keep checking back on our Resource Centre for more updates. And as Superhosts, which means you set the highest bar, we really appreciate you even more during these times of uncertainty, so thank you. And some good news on the horizon. Brian Chesky just announced that everyone who did maintain their Superhost status in that last April 2020 Superhost assessment will automatically keep their Superhost status through the next assessment. And finally, if you're still with us, we've made it to the most asked question. Why is there no record of cancelled eligible reservations on the transaction page? Airbnb's answer, we don't have an answer for that yet. We're looking into it and we'll let you know as soon as we know. If you have any more questions that you want to have answered by Airbnb, post them in the comments below and I'll do my best to get back to you with answers for them too. I know they don't answer every single question, but they did go a long way to answering most of these questions with us today. And if you need anything clarified, please comment below and I'll do my best to answer them. I'm Nadine Beveridge from LearnHolidayHosting.com. See you in the next one.